Hello and welcome to the Practical Leadership Podcast, where leaders share their tools and practical advice to make you a better leader today. My guest today is the legendary founder of Alamo Beer, which has now become more than just a beer and spirits. It is now strongly ingrained into the community and the culture in San Antonio. Before Alamo Beer, our guest today studied and got a degree in industrial technology. It's a combination of engineering and business, from what I understand. And he was a sales engineer for Johnson Controls. One of the interesting things was that he embarked on a year-long sailing adventure around the world. And then when he was done with that, he relocated and he wanted to find the next place to live. And he chose San Antonio. From there, he started a couple of different businesses, and one of them was redevelopment, basically taking old buildings and kind of making them profitable rental properties. He's an active member of the community. He's hardworking, dedicated, focused. I remember, 15 years ago or so, anywhere I went, anywhere where there were people, you would see our guest here today and a booth and sampling of a product. Nobody's worked harder. Eugene Simor, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Max. Good to see you.
It is excellent to see you too. So before we get started, what has been something good, fun, exciting, happy that's been happening in your world?
Well, it starts with getting up every morning, but since I'm already 60, I know I've got to save on our family vacations, just being able to spend time. I've got 4 kids, lovely wife, and we just did a sailing trip for a week. Sailing's my passion, so it was great to be able to introduce the family to that, get them out on the water, get them in the water, snorkeling, and just to be able to spend a week, and there were no fights, no drama. It was just a whole bunch of fun. So that's probably the biggest thing in the last 6 months on a personal level.
That is excellent. I believe in the importance of spending time with a family together. And there's no better way of doing it than on a trip. It doesn't matter where you go, right? You're just kind of outside your environment, spending both time together. So I think that I always connect you with Alamo Beer, Nettie, and your kids, right? Like it's a big bunch. So how do you feel about like family values, San Antonio, local community?
Well, I mean, you got to remember I was single and no kids up until about 44. So I've seen San Antonio from 2 different sides, from a wildly popular, fun party town as a bachelor. It was great. San Antonio offered everything. But I must say, in the last 15 years now, with kids, wife, family, San Antonio is a great family spot. I see the community comes together and really rallies around its citizens and its visitors. And it's friendly. They say Texas is friendly. Well, San Antonio is extra friendly.
Yeah, I agree. And so let's talk a little bit about those values. So, you're always friendly, you're always outgoing, you're always out there meeting people, I like to say shaking hands, kissing babies, growing the business. Where does that come from? Where does that kind of natural instinct to be serving people, helping people, being around people, where does that come from?
Well, I guess going all the way back to, grade school, I remember different things, but it's a result of my parents being engaged and encouraging us to meet new people, look you in the eye, shake their hand, sort of things. My mother was a flight attendant, so she had this ability to really talk to anybody. I think as a result of that, there was no fear factor of meeting anybody new. And it was kind of fun and adventure. So I got to imagine some of those early days of my mom being so outgoing.
Excellent. And how do you think that has translated into your leadership and your views of leadership?
Well, I think the ability to connect with people relatively quickly. And so much of that just has to do with a good introduction to somebody, looking them in the eye, visiting, letting them talk to make sure that you learn about them, so you can find the best way to relate to them. Long time ago, read the Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. even trying to get my kids to read it now, because I think that's just a really good head start on life to learn how to really be a good listener and to try to engage folks and get a conversation going.
That is very cool. So, do you consider yourself to be a leader? If so, how did that come about? When did you first understand the concept of leadership?
Well, I think that the initial stuff is probably with team sports when you're a kid. And I, you don't decide to be a leader at that age. It just kind of happens. I think since I was okay in sports, I tended to be a little bit taller than most of the kids. So that probably gave me just a bit of a leg up just to start with. But being able to lead a sports team and have that desire to win when you're young helps. But the actual leadership where I really started to look at it would have been through the Boy Scouts. And I started that in probably 7th or 8th grade. The way that it's structured is you have a patrol or your team that's part of a troop. And within that patrol, you work with the other folks and the other guys. Different people have different jobs, but it does teach you to lead the younger scouts. And I think that's really where I kind of got my first taste of leadership and leadership through teaching others.
I should have mentioned that you were an Eagle Scout, right? Like that's something to definitely wear.
Well, yeah, I'm still an Eagle Scout. I'm just a lot older. Oh,
Well, once an Eagle Scout, always an Eagle Scout.
yeah.
That is fantastic. So you were talking about kind of like leading others and serving others. So what is it about this, Boy Scout mindset on leadership? I remember reading, it's been a while, so somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but something around like 20% of all Fortune 500 CEOs were Eagle Scouts. This was a few decades ago, so I don't know my latest, but there's like strong correlation about learning about leadership early on. But I think it's not just learning about leadership; it's I believe the type of leadership.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I know it's a high number. I don't know what it is, but it's not high enough, or else you'd be interviewing me as a CEO of a Fortune 500.
just give it some time. Just give it some time.
Well, the type of leadership that I think that I got through scouting was it's not an adult telling you what to do. It's you figuring it out yourself. So the way that things are set up in scouting, when you get to that level, is the scouts are the leaders, and they plan the meetings, they plan the campouts, and it's okay to mess something up. Heck, I remember one time we were hiking up in the mountains of Southern California, and well, I hate to say it, but our patrol got lost on a hike, but we figured it out. We got down. It was pouring down rain. It was miserable. It was cold. We found a post office in a little town and sat there until we were picked up. But we knew enough of how to get off the mountain, and that sort of leadership, not panic. But the thing that I think all leaders have, it's a self-sufficiency, is you don't have to worry about things because most situations you've already had some sort of mental preparedness for it by thinking ahead, by planning, by from others that have made mistakes. It's that really that self-sufficiency and the confidence that it builds is probably the biggest thing. I remember when we were rolled from 1999 to 2000, everybody thought things were coming to an end, and we're
Y2K bug, right?
Yeah, stocking up on water, this, that, and everything. And there were so many things that people were doing that I found so ridiculous, like buying a whole bunch of bottled water. Well, all you have to do is fill up your bathtub, okay? Or your water heater is an 80-gallon storage tank. It's just, most people don't know that because they've never actually trained about it or thought about it. But one of the merit badges is, survival based. So it teaches you to think differently. So I understand that goes back to that confidence.
I'm guessing toilet paper wasn't up in your list of survival items either.
Well, I will say during the shortage recently during COVID and everything else, my wife did a lot of walking with me. I like to get out and get some exercise. And I always point out to her the toilet paper trees, which a sycamore tree has the best leaf to wipe your backside with. So there is no shortage of toilet paper, or I'm sorry, there's no shortage of being able to take care of your business. There may be a shortage of toilet paper, but it doesn't mean that you can't have a clean backside by using Mother Nature.
That is excellent. So, this podcast is all about practical advice on leadership and other subjects, but there you go, right? Now, sycamore tree plants are the best ones for that.
The leaves.
The sycamores.
Yeah. The spring leaves and the summer leaves are great. When they turn brown in the winter, you got to be a little bit more careful.
Okay, you heard it here, folks. All right. So we're talking about, leadership and self-sufficiency, thinking, planning, learning from others, learning from other mistakes. How did that translate into your business and being able to grow and evolve your business? How much of that would you say kind of rings true in your business approach?
Well, when I first started, I mean, it was me in a minivan that was getting my product was being brewed at a brewery 50 miles north of San Antonio. But I was doing all the sales, marketing, restocking the shelves. So it was a one-man wrecking crew. So I learned most every job within my company from the ground up. So I understand what it is to, work hard. It's not just something that, I bought and walked into the CEO's office and said, "Oh, there's my new chair." So I think learning along the way and building as you go and getting a skill set and doing your best to understand all the different jobs in your company is a real plus for the way that I put things together.
So you've kind of built this business on a lot of confidence, understanding the fundamentals of each of the different areas and functions. How does that translate now that, you went from a minivan to, now this beautiful brewery community place, people, where people gather and have conversations and spend time with family. How are these different values and mindsets? How have they translated from you into what is now visible for all of us?
Well, the hardest thing realizing it as a company owner or as a leader is realizing what you don't know. So, man, I learned a lot from the ground up, doing all the deliveries and do all that. But the things that I didn't know, I wish I realized a little bit sooner, like distributor relationships. We had built up the company to a point where I needed a distribution network. I'd never worked with one before. It's a kind of a different mindset and a different approach. I didn't have that skill set. And I wish I would have learned that a few years before I did to be able to bring the right people in. Same thing with our beer hole is I've never run a restaurant before. I have bartended before. So I knew a little bit of the job, but I didn't know the rest of it. So it was making sure that I hired some folks that have the experience that could get things going. And I could be there as a motivator, but not as a know-it-all.
So that is something I'd like to explore. You built a lot of self-reliance, a lot of thinking, planning, executing, learning hard, learning yourself, and you kind of built it on your shoulders, right? And one thing that I always see in businesses is that there's this stage where the owner hits the wall, right? Like you just can't keep going on just by yourself. And it's like it's a significant change in mindset going from I've done it all to now I've got to bring other people. How did you get through it? Especially knowing you and knowing your like no nonsense, again, you use a word that I like more than other words that I've heard before, self-reliance, right? Like you want self-reliance from people, ownership, accountability, do what you're supposed to. How were you able to balance that shift?
Wow.
Or manage that?
Well, I know I can't lift a keg of beer like I used to. Slinging those off the truck used to be easy work. now I'm old enough where I ask for some help when I'm doing that sort of stuff. It, it is a hard shift, and I still struggle with it because there's certain things that I do and expect that others, it might just be a job to them. It's not their livelihood. It's not their passion, and they're getting a paycheck and they're getting, paid for their services. They're slowly becoming part of the team, but there's a couple different mindsets when you have folks that are working for you. And I think if you can identify those and know how to work with that person on each different level. I mean, some are highly motivated, ready to go. Advancement motivates them. Others, it's personal pride will motivate them. Some folks, it's, hey, I want to get through the shift. I want to get my paycheck and I want to go do the things that I really enjoy. So it's kind of identifying each one of those types of folks that are working for you and trying to come up with a plan that's best, because one style doesn't fit all. And then also what I've learned is there are some people that are, unfortunately, I've found it almost impossible to motivate. I don't get it. I don't understand. And I don't know if that's some of that old man syndrome, creeping in, is like, hey kids, get off my lawn, or I just remember when I was young, I was a box boy at a supermarket. Absolutely loved it. It's because I was getting paid too much as a kid, but that was the going wage. So I had this great job interacting with folks and everything. And I worked hard, even harder, because that was just, how I was. I learned how to strive to achieve and not to be a slacker. But it's trying to find folks, and how do you take a slacker and make them into a performer? I don't have that leadership skill. I don't know.
Well, it's a great question, and I don't think there's a good answer for that, right? Something I've explored for decades. And Jack Stack, The Great Game of Business, wonderful book, wonderful system. He says it, you gotta wanna, right? You gotta wanna. And that's probably one of the most difficult things, again, to get someone to want to do something.
Yeah.
You can't, right? Like it's, to me, in business, it's usually, it ends up wasting a lot of time. It ends up wasting a lot of energy. You want to work with the people that want to learn, that want to grow, that want to develop. And then there's so much you can do with them. And those that don't, I'm sure there's a place for them, but typically not in high growth organizations. So yeah, if somebody has figured out how to turn someone that is not motivated and doesn't want to into someone that does in a kind of like business setting in a profitable way, please let me know. I mean, Doug Harrison does talk about the idea. He was on the show and he talked about, turning good people into an A team through great systems. But even then, there's an element of, desire. So with you on that. Okay. So then we're talking about adapting your communication, your style, focusing on what they want, what they need, talking about what is important to them so you can give them what they want to get the outcomes that you're looking for, as kind of like a way of doing things. And it sounds to me like a lot of that comes from your experience with people and liking people. So what are some things that someone that might not be so naturally gifted or talented at that, how could you spot what somebody is interested in or how somebody is motivated? Like, what are some things that you look for? If you're working with a person, what conversations do you have? What do you look for to say, now I get it. They are motivated by money or growth or recognition. How do you do it?
I don't have a pat answer for that, but as I kind of think about it a little bit, it's getting to know the person more than just the guy that operates a machine or the guy that's serving you a beer or whoever it might be. Is try to find a little bit more about them personally. With today's world, a lot of folks don't want to go there and ask the questions. But if you find it, if somebody has a passion for reading, one of our guys here, I was having a beer with him after work, and we started talking about some different books and things. And it turned out we had a common thread about the types of adventure books that we like to read. That I call them the true to life historical novels, where the characters are made up, but the historical facts are correct, or
Oh, very cool.
yeah. So we made a little bond on that. And not that I know exactly what motivates him now, but I do understand him a little bit more. And there's something to relate to. If you can find some sort of common ground, it helps. And I think just a little bit better of a connection. And then I'll just see you as as the boss or the, employee boss relationship. It's okay. I know a little bit about him and kind of go from there.
So I love the idea of knowing people, connecting with them, working with them, more holistically, right? More than, hey, here's just a job.
Yeah.
Here's a challenge that I hear people say when I have some of those conversations. Well, I don't have time for that. We're too busy. How do you tackle it?
Too busy is always an easy excuse.
Absolutely.
You need to make time for it. And it doesn't have to be much time. I mean, and it might be different. I mean, we've got about 30 people working here. I mean, it's not 200 people running around and have a production schedule that's so tight, sort of thing. So we have a little bit more flexibility. And then, plus at the end of every shift, you get 2 beers each day. So we usually have a few folks hanging out here, having a beer after work and relating. So it tends to be a little bit more social. The other ones, I think if you are in such a tight thing and you don't have anything social built into your work schedule, you need to find a way to have something. Even if it's just something short and fun after work. So just make time for it. And if I knew how to make time, that'd be a whole nother book. And you can't make more time. You just have to use your time a little bit differently and add that bit into your schedule. Do what it takes.
I love the idea, right? It's not an accident. You make it happen. You look for it. You look for the time. Just a quick plug here, right? Have an Alamo beer with your team members after work.
I did. That's a good.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're also making some non-alcoholics here as well. We're doing quite a bit more contract brewing. So we do have a variety of soda pops that we're making, some cheese. There's a really neat one made with an olive leaf that we're making here. We're making a drink that I knew a little bit about from my sailing days it's a drink that has kava in it. And that's a root from Fiji. That's a ceremonial plant there. So there's plenty of things. It doesn't have to be a beer. It can be just something to gather and enjoy some camaraderie.
Thank you for that. So that's one thing that I forgot to mention about you. Very creative, right? And you could see all the different activities, promotions, products, partnerships. I mean, there's a lot of activity there. Let's keep it within the context of leadership. How do you use that creativity in your leadership style, in working with people, working with teams? I mean, you don't build what you've built by yourself, even though one person, leads it. How do you infuse this creativity into your team?
Obviously, try to find something a little fun to do every now and then. But we've reached out to the community quite a bit, and the community's reached back. And we do a ton of work with nonprofits supporting their, whether it's something as simple as they want to have a gathering here at our facility, or if we're donating a product to a charity fundraiser. That's not creative per se, but heck, it might be for somebody if they've never thought about that, hosting things at their business. We do some brainstorming here. I know. So the one thing that's great about having those beers every now and then with different people is you do brainstorm a bit, and just that process of talking things through, I think, helps get the creativity flowing, where you can, come up with some new ideas and new concepts.
Have you gotten great ideas from the community, from people that just come up to you and say, "Hey, Eugene, I thought about this or thought about that." And is there like some things that you're listening to certain patterns? You're like, "Yeah, we probably need to do something there."
Well, if I say yes, I'm going to have to give you an example. And if I say no, it sounds like I'm not listening to the community. I'm just having a hard time coming up with what an example would be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can give you an example of what I know, right?
Okay.
You have the community in certain ways. I mean, there's both trends, but then there's both community wanting brews,
Okay.
right? And saying, hey, I mean, people want it. I hear it. You should do this. You should do that. And you're like, okay, let's look into it. And then you end up developing things.
Well, good. You've got me thinking now. So we have a perfect example is we have a tap room here, or it's our beer hall. And we generally every week we'll have a new beer on tap, but it's not just a new beer. We call it the brewer's barrel. It's one keg of beer. We have a really small pilot system here. It's home brewing, except we're making it here, so we don't call it home brew. But that particular brew, it rotates among all different members of the staff. You might have one of the professional brewers making it one week, and then another week it might be, somebody on the packaging line that's wants to give it a try. So they'll get creative together with one of the brewers, but everybody here at the business has an opportunity to brew something, not on the giant production scale. Obviously, we don't want to have, if something doesn't turn out right, it's expensive to dump that. But just that one keg at a time, it's really kind of fun. Well, that one keg at a time ends up in our beer hall, people sample it. And if we get really good feedback, it might, end up being a production batch. If it doesn't get good feedback, you pat them on the back and say, hey, we tried. Hopefully we can get through the rest of this keg. You don't have to dump it. But
Yeah. Go back to your day job.
but they have fun. The good thing, and that does create a lot of camaraderie here at the brewery. It's just that single task of getting a couple of folks together to make a very small.
So getting people engaged and involved and trying and kind of tapping into their creativity and looking for things to do. Let's jump into a different subject, learning. You've mentioned the importance of learning, becoming aware and learning more about what you don't, and the importance of, it's the things that you don't know that could be getting in the way of your success. That if you just become aware of them, right? Like now I know I don't know that, I can do something. How do you now try to keep up with that and make sure that you're learning and becoming more and more aware of the things that you don't know that could be important for you?
Well, I think everybody throughout your career, you kind of have to do a self-assessment annually or, thereabouts, and set a couple goals for things that you want to be more educated on. It doesn't mean you have to go back to school or anything like that. But if you just read a couple books on a subject, it doesn't take long to be a book smart expert on something. It doesn't mean you're going to be perhaps as good as somebody that's actually doing that craft, but you can certainly learn about it. So I continue to learn and do self-assessments. I also think so much of that does come with age, where I find that as I've aged, I'm not as cocky as I used to be. I'm certainly maybe more opinionated, but for me, it's a lot easier now I don't have to fool myself and pretend I know something. And it's very often I'll be in a meeting and somebody uses a word and I have no idea what it means. I don't mind asking. Whereas if you're younger, you may not, but it's fine to admit what you don't know, because if you don't know something and you don't try to find out, and then you're making a decision based upon something you don't know, well, then your whole decision-making process is flawed.
Yeah. So separating the information and knowing what you don't know. I like to talk about this, and I think it's an important subject because it's both a level of maturity and it takes people's leadership to the next level. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And you got to have people that are very smart at what they do, so you can learn from them, right? And I think that what I'm hearing from you is to say, I mean, when you're building your business from scratch, right, distributing beer out of your minivan, there's no one that's going to be smarter than you at your business. But at a certain point, you realize that you don't know everything, and then you've got to be open to learning. And that to me is a critical point. Just kind of like a little bit on a personal note, I don't have clients that think that they're the smartest person in the room. And sometimes they are by far the smartest person in any room, but it's how they feel and it's how they make other people feel about it. So just a wonderful sign of both like maturity and a leadership, kind of saying, I can be that now. So thanks, Eugene, for that. Let me ask you this. You talk a little bit about doing some self-assessment. How do you do it? Do you have a particular like tool? Do you think and reflect? Do you ask yourself some questions? How do you go about this self-assessment?
I just kind of sit and think. Yeah. I don't have an actual tool or a process or that. I'm still very old school. That's a little black book, and on
Excellent.
each little page, it has calendar stuff. I, I still do that. If I'm going to take notes, I have a page in the back. Well, I'll jot down a thing or two if I think it's, important to follow up on. So that's mine. And for me, I mean, so much of it might be, oh, I heard about that and I want to learn more about it. So I'll jot it down. I do have an iPhone, and I figured out how to save a few things on that as well, where I might go to a website and send it over and say, okay, I want to research this later on. But I'm old school. I mean, my VCR is still flashing 12. I mean, that's how non-technical I am. So
For those of you that don't know what a VCR is,
yes.
okay. So you're curious and you hear things and you're like, I want to know more about those things.
Yeah.
And you don't have, like necessarily a structured process, but you think, right? Which is a super valuable thing to do. Most people are too busy to stop and think. And you're saying, no, I'm thinking. Are you thinking in terms of the business? Are you thinking in terms of your vision? One of the things I remember from back in the day was you always had a vision for what you wanted to build, right? I mean, you never had this idea, well, I'm just going to sell some beer and see what happens. So you wanted big things. How important do you think it is, or it has been for you, to have a vision and to continue to evolve that vision? Because I think that's how you find your gaps, right? Like that's how you find that if I'm gonna have a beer garden, I probably need to learn a little bit about how to run a restaurant.
Yeah. The good thing is I've been learning how to drink beer, and I continue to hone that skill. So I do a lot of market research per se as I'm drinking. But the idea is you can set a big goal, but don't think that's setting the goal is one thing, but you've got to set smaller goals along the way. And it's the whole thing about you're not going to be able to eat an elephant in one bite. You got to kind of chew on it. And I think, I still want Alamo Beer to be the largest craft brewery in Texas. And we're a long way off from that. But the idea is we keep growing towards it. But as far as reassessing some of the big goals, I look at that and I know where I am now, and I know how hard it's taken to get there. That goal has changed. I mean, as craft industry has changed, I would like a well-known Texas brand. Our market focuses Texas. You get questions all the time. Well, when are you going to go out of state? Well, probably never, because if you can't make it in your own backyard, greater San Antonio area, can you really make it in all of Texas? And then why would you think about going out of the state? The whole thing for me about supporting local is let's support local. Let's, there's not just talking about it, but let's actually do it, sort of thing. So that big vision, it has changed slightly. I mean, it's been, it'll be 20 years in October that I had my first product on the market. So in that, times have changed, and I tend to, that big picture goal has changed slightly as time goes on. So now it's just, I want a beer that people support locally, that the branding has set it up so the branding has a possibility to be, the national beer of San Antonio, and it hopefully will be a product that's recognized throughout the state.
I mean, that's powerful insight. The idea that, you have a big goal, you break it down into milestones, but you're reevaluating it. You're reevaluating it both on the business side of things, and you're reevaluating it in terms of what you're learning along the way and what is important for you. And I think that one of the things that has always been powerful is that it has always been about San Antonio. It has always been about Texas. And I think that you just get clearer and clearer and more confident about the direction. And and the ambition is not about just dollars, because you could start distributing everywhere and make more dollars because there's a very large market out there. But you're like, I want to win here. I want it to mean something. I want it to have purpose. And it's that redefinition of the goals that probably continues to give you energy. As you said, you're waking up and going to work. You're at the office right now, and continuing to push the team forward to kind of continue to make this vision happen. How do you communicate this vision with your team? What is this? What is the story that you tell them? How do you tell them? How do they know what you know and what you want to build?
Well, frankly, I wish I did a better job of it. I don't have a newsletter that we do every month or anything. I think if there's one area I can improve upon, it is kind of corporate communication. But to everybody, for me to get the word across, I'm here and it's social, and I'm able to visit with people on a regular basis. So it's that sort of thing. I think the next thing is, as we grow, I probably do need some real structure as to, as the leader of the company, is what can I do to make sure that the new guy that I hadn't met yet already knows what those goals are and the vision for the company. So I think that's an area for improvement, even after all these years.
It's something I deal with every day, right? We go from, it's a small group, knowing each other, communicating, socializing, troubleshooting. So there's a lot of knowing each other and what's in our minds. And as we continue to grow, that kind of gets diluted unless we're very focused on it. So one of the good things that I hear is, great leaders always think that they can do a better job, which is always true, right? We can always do a better job, but there is a job being done. And you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier with the events, with the spending time with the team, with getting to know people. And I think that it might not be formal at this moment, but it is definitely happening. And it's kind of more organic, because you're still at the size where talking to people is something that is very possible.
Right. I'm still able to do, my office is, 100 feet from where the beer is brewed and packaged. So spending some time out in the production area definitely helps. Spending out at the beer garden, visiting with folks, that's good. But I do see a sense of need for a little bit more structure now that we're growing past 30 people, and with any luck, we'll have a second shift that'll be starting here, probably coming into the summer. So as we grow, I know I need to look ahead and figure out how to best, let people know is, hey, that old guy is the guy that started the company. You might, want to visit with.
Yeah. Well, I think you mentioned something about, thinking and planning and learning from others. So I think that if you use that same philosophy, that same approach, there's a lot of blueprints out there. There's a lot of systems out there. There's a lot of frameworks out there that can really help expedite this. So, we can save a lot of the learning curve and continue to accelerate into kind of like the next level of our business evolution.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Eugene, are there a few things that you always tell people? Like, are there some conversations that you find yourself having, like, over and over, whether it's your kids, whether it's team members or friends? Are there a few things that are just very intrinsic to kind of like how you view the world and how you think about things?
Well, that wasn't on your list of potential questions.
No.
To try to anticipate and look ahead, but I don't mean that in necessarily a business sense. It's, at least with my kids and family, it's, be cognizant of your surroundings. Far too often there's folks that are just looking down at their phone, and they don't experience what's around them, or they don't realize that the iron is sitting on the counter and there's a toddler coming into the room. Well, I know it's going to happen. It may never happen, but they're going to pull on that cord and that iron's going to fall down. And I always think this kind of worst case planning scenario, but by just telling people, have your heads up and look around a bit. I mean, that's it. It's the one thing I love about sailing with the same guys that I have is we work so well as a team that you don't have to even say anything. If the sail's going up and somebody's handing you a wind channel, you're ready to go. Somebody's trimming things. That there's a lot of that teamwork that happens through repetition, but you anticipate, but you don't get that so much in your corporate environment. Yes, I guess I don't really tell people that. I don't know. You got me back. So I mean,
Well, I mean, the thing is, I know you a little bit, and
yeah,
you always have like a kind of like a no nonsense approach to things, right?
yeah,
And are very practical to things, and are very aware. So I never asked you this before, so I was
yeah,
just curious if there was like a type of like philosophy or mindset that you're always telling people. Well, but I love the idea of being aware and being present and in life and in at work. And I actually think that your product is a great conduit to it, right? I mean, typically, beer's related to social, right? You're with other people and you're enjoying the moment and it's an opportunity to be present. And I think that's kind of one of the unique values that I see in spirits, right? It's a moment to become aware and to be present. And then this repetition. So when you're sailing, you guys know each other, you've been together for a while, and you know each other's moves, and you know what each other should be doing, and you have the confidence and trust in each of them. So it's again, you probably all know about the same things and know the positions and know the roles and know what to expect and kind of how to work through those. So you did mention that I asked you a question that was not in the potential question.
but
So
you've asked plenty of them actually, but
I was going to ask, have I missed any question that you wanted to talk about?
let's see. Not in particular. You have made me through this interview process you've made me kind of think through a few things that I had. So I appreciate that. And I think I know that as I get older and dealing with all different kinds of people, you have to remember that not everybody's like you. And quite frankly, not everybody likes you. You just have to be a little bit easier going, realize that you can't control others, behaviors, that you gotta focus on the things that you can and go from there. So I like what I do. It's fun. And I will agree with you on the beer and spirits being very social. Is most folks' favorite beer is not just because they taste it, they think it's great. That favorite beer is associated with the time that they had it, whether it was something they did with friends, a concert, an outing. We just won the sailing championship and, you're having that favorite beer. It's a good time, goes with the product that in your mind is your favorite.
So it goes back to the establishing the emotional connections with people.
Well, yeah, people, that's for sure. I mean, it's that and the people people are far more important than products. I'm just happy that we've got good people here. And we also have a really good product.
Excellent. I have maybe a couple more questions. So I'll ask you this
Yeah.
one, then I'll do a quick summary, and then we'll kind of wrap up. What do you think has been your secret to success? Right? I mean, Alamo Beer is a clear success. It has more potential, and there's more growth expected. What do you think has been key to that?
Work hard and don't give up. Boy, there were a lot of times that kind of banging my head against the wall, thinking, okay, maybe I should get a job that has got a regular paycheck. But I got through that. It's pushing yourself, going forward, not giving up, but also try to think things through before you do them. I mean, I taught my kids how to play chess, and the whole idea of thinking several moves ahead is so important that if you can do that, even if it's just a couple moves or, one move, just try to think ahead a little bit of what will happen before you actually move that piece. Then is it the best Father's Day that I had was a couple years ago, when my son beat me in chess, and I think he was about 8 or 9 at the time. I was excited. I was like, wow, okay, he's got it. He's thinking ahead. So that's probably the most important thing.
That is excellent. It's also consistent with a lot of things that you say, right? That awareness, which allows you to think ahead, the planning and thinking, which allows you to see ahead, and then putting in the time, giving it the energy, and recognizing that there's going to be obstacles along the way. So I'm going to try to give you kind of like a little bit of a summary, right, with some of my key notes. For our audience, remember you can download this summary, practicalleadership.com. You can download the summary and share with others. Here's kind of some of the big things. So a little bit of your formation had to do with, no fear factor, being willing and open to meet anyone and open to it. Reading the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, as a tool that you recommend for people to kind of get comfortable and understand the importance of listening and caring for what other people have to say and what other people care about. Talked about leadership and kind of how you formed your leadership mindset. And a lot of it was sports, and in particular, Boy Scouts. So the big idea is help people figure things out, right? So don't tell people what to do, help people figure things out. And it's okay to learn from mistakes. And the fundamental piece here is, self-sufficiency. And I think that that's kind of one of the big things that Scouts ultimately gives people is this confidence in themselves and this knowledge that, you'll survive through anything. So self-sufficiency, and it starts with thinking and planning ahead and learning from others. When it comes to business, one of the keys you said is know your business well, know all aspects of it. You started in the delivering in a minivan, and you had to learn all the different aspects of your business, which allowed you to then make great decisions and know what you would expect from these different areas. Then you also mentioned the importance of knowing what you don't know about. So when you're looking ahead, you become aware of what you're going to need to learn about. And part of your mindset and philosophy is about being curious. So if you're curious and you're thinking ahead, you're going to figure out, well, I better learn about that. And kind of like, well, if I'm going to be opening up a beer garden, well, I probably need to learn a little bit about the restaurant business and be curious about it and go and read a few books and talk to some people. Really powerful thing. You got to know people at a personal level, know what drives them, what motivates them, what they care about, and adapt your communication and your style to suit them. You can't do too much with the people that are just not motivated, right? If they don't wanna, there's only so much you can do. So spend your time with those that want to, and find common ground, seek to connect, right? The question then was like, well, when do you do that? Got to find time. You've got to find time. You've got to create social events. You've got to create those opportunities to build the time. So time is not an excuse. You've got to find time for it. It's a priority because we've got to be prioritizing people. Learning from the community, learning from your team, and letting them be engaged. So one of the ways that you build this engagement is by letting everybody be a brewer. What a great concept. For our audience out there, you're running a business, you're leading a department. How could you let everyone be a brewer? Right? I think I'm gonna coin that phrase, Eugene, if you allow me to, right? I'm going to tell this story over because it's kind of giving the opportunity for everyone to get the spotlight and be creative and show you kind of what they've got and engage with what you have. I just think that's just a great concept altogether. The self-assessment is thinking about, where do you want to be? How are you going to get there? What do you need to know about? And just giving yourself time to think, giving yourself time to be curious allows you to do that. And then we talked about setting goals, but breaking them down to milestones and not being afraid to adjust them as you mature and as your business matures. And with that, you kind of have clarity of the direction and can bring everyone along with you because, it makes sense and it makes sense to you and you're still connected with that goal and purpose. And it's not something that, you had when you were, 20 years younger. It's the goal that you have as you've developed, which tends to have more community and more social well-being as I have learned as we age as well. Secret to success, right? Work hard, don't give up, and think several moves ahead. It'll allow you to navigate through business and make better decisions. And understand that not everyone is like you and not everyone is going to like you, and that is okay. If you ultimately have to be yourself and lead others kind of with what you have to offer. So I'm sure I've missed a few things, but I just wanted to highlight a few of the thoughts that, kind of stood out for me. I mean, last but not least, this is a really important one, right? Sycamore tree leaves. Let's not forget about their important contribution to humanity.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So did I miss anything, Eugene? Is there something that I didn't ask you that I should have asked that you want to share with everyone?
No, I guess I'm looking forward to continuous success here at Alamo. I'm looking forward to a transition where I'm, not here on a daily basis, but get to ease into retirement and know that there's a good team to keep Alamo Beer going forward.
Very cool. Thank you for that. If somebody wants to reach out to you, connect with you, now that I told them that they can share their great ideas with you, is there a good place that they can go?
Yeah, you just go to alamobeer.com and find me through our website, but it's just Eugene at alamobeer.com.
Okay. It's pretty simple one. So Eugene, before I let you go today, what is something fun, exciting, happy that you're looking forward to happening in the next few weeks or months, business or personal?
Well, I'm going out to the Sierra Nevada to do an in-depth study of the snowpack.
And so you're going skiing?
Yeah. So I'll do that tomorrow. I learned how to ski at a very, very young age. I was probably in 3rd grade or something. I still remember my first pair of skis that are hand-me-downs from my mom. And they were made of wood and had these cable bindings, and the boots were lace up. So that was something that I did with my father as a young person. He taught me how to ski, and I've kept that up and now taught my kids how to ski. But this is the coveted guys trip, and we're leaving to California tomorrow.
Well, that sounds fun. Is this the same group of people you sail with, or is this a different group?
No, different group. I'm fortunate to have a good group of friends that we go skiing every year. And then I've got a good group of friends that we sail on a regular basis.
I can imagine that's going to be high caliber and pretty intense, knowing what I know.
The ski Capri is better than it used to be, and I look forward to it.
Excellent. Eugene, it's been fantastic having you on the show today. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for what you're doing for the community, putting the name of San Antonio out there, making it bigger, brighter, better. Your contributions, the products, the development of new ideas. I just appreciate all of that. And I think we're all better for having you here in San Antonio. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Matt.